My name is Cassidy, and my intervention topic is mindfulness. So, a quick introduction about what mindfulness is: it's the awareness and focus on the present moment, and it's accepting things without judgment. And this encourages athletes not to dwell on the past or stress about the future. So, you see this little infographic here. It's got the person in the middle and the present, and it says your body is present, is your mind. So, that just means you're not focusing too much on the past, you're not dwelling about past experiences, you're not letting that distract you, and you're also not letting the future distract you and let the future endeavors stress you out. So a couple examples of this: let past experiences go, learn from them, and move on. This isn't necessarily saying just completely forget about them. Like there's definitely lessons to be learned from past experiences, but you can't dwell on them. You can't let that impact your future performances. And then also don't let future competition impact current performance. You don't want ideas of future components or anything like that to stress you out. An example of this might be Kentucky basketball from the past NCAA tournament. They might have been focused on who they're going to play in the future, maybe if they make it to the Elite Eight, maybe the Final Four, but they weren't able to get past St. Peter's. That could have been a mindfulness component. They weren't in the moment focusing on defeating the opponent that they had at hand. So, the practice of mindfulness is based on an Eastern philosophical belief that the source of suffering is an uncontrolled mind guided by anger, attachment, and ignorance. I think this just kind of means that you can't let your emotions get the best of you. And that's kind of what mindfulness is about. You're just focusing yourself in the present moment, being aware of your surroundings, but not letting your emotions overtake you. So, keep attention on the moment at hand. That's what mindfulness is all about. And an example of this that I think is a good example that we talked about in class is John Wooden. He never said when. In this quote here, if there's anything you could point out where I was a little different, it was the fact that I never mentioned winning. So I think this is really important in a mindfulness component in that he never stressed his players out saying you have to win, 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 something like that. He was just saying go out there and play the best you can, play to your ability, and then the winning will come. And it subsequently did. So some core components of formal mindfulness, this comes out of a research paper that I cited at the end, but the first is intention, and that's through self-regulation, self-exploration, self-liberation, insight, and wisdom. This is just saying if you want to be mindful, then you have to have the intent to be mindful. It's not something that just happens. And then another component is attention. This can be to internal and external stimuli. Internal stimuli is how you're feeling before competition, how you're feeling before a practice, or just how you're feeling in general, paying attention to maybe pain that you feel, anxiety that you're feeling, and kind of draw it back and center yourself and be ready to go. And then external stimuli, that could be maybe the crowd roaring at you, crowd screaming at you, anything like that. And just kind of trying to drown that out and stay in the moment and focus on what you're there to do. And then the third component is attitude. Components of this would be non-judgmental, acceptance, openness, self-respect, and non-reactivity. I think this just kind of shows that in order to be mindful, you can't have your attitude bogged down by a bunch of emotions. You don't want to be overly emotional when you're playing. You need to accept what's happening in the moment, but also realize that that doesn't mean that you just give up. You have to keep playing and know that you have an impact on what's going to happen if you just play to your ability. So, how mindfulness training can help? It can lead to better mental preparation. You've probably heard the saying before, athletes need to get their mind right. That's a big thing in sports, is talking about getting your mind right. Optimal mental preparation can enhance physiological readiness. It can decrease resting heart rate, decrease pain sensitivity, and decrease pre-competition stress. All of these are kind of components to anxiety, so you see how mindfulness can definitely reduce pre-competition anxiety. And it can also decrease the risk of burnout. If an athlete is feeling super stressed out before every competition, they're going to get burnt out on that. They don't like feeling like that. They want to feel like, they're confident and they can go in there and do what they're tasked to do, not feeling like, they're going to be sick before every competition. So mindfulness can definitely help decrease that risk of burnout. So continuing more on enhanced athletic performance from mindfulness, it improves concentration, it decreases anxiety like I talked about in the previous slide. And it allows athletes to address thoughts and emotions as something that will pass, not necessarily an inherent truth. So, an example of this, if you have a runner that thinks, oh man, I'm getting tired, I can't finish this race, they can identify that as just a passing thought. And instead of, giving into those thoughts, they can just think, this thought will pass and I can continue. And that's what I'm here to do, is to keep running. And this is what I trained for. And I'm not going to let these emotions and these thoughts drag me down. That's kind of what mindfulness is about. And it also connects the physical ability with the ability to perform. So you might have an athlete that's doing great in practice, they're killing it in practice. Coach is ready to put them out there on the field to compete. And they go out there and the coach is like, well, what happened? That's not who I saw at practice. They just weren't able to do what they were doing in practice like they can in competition. And that might be due to a lack of mental preparation, just letting the feelings and emotions get to you and letting that impact your performance. So learning how to be mindful can connect those physical abilities, those great physical abilities that athletes have, and translate that into the ability to perform. So a sport that I think demonstrates a lot of mindfulness is golf. And I played golf in high school. I played competitive golf tournaments. So that's also kind of why I picked this sport, to give a little bit more commentary on it as well. But an interesting thing about golf is it typically takes around 4 to 5 hours per round, and only about 5 minutes of that is actually spent swinging the club. So that involves a huge mental component. That's 95% of the entire round of golf is spent thinking and planning out your next shot and planning everything. And only 5 minutes of that is actually demonstrating the skill it takes to hit the golf ball. I remember when I would play golf tournaments, I would get very nervous walking to the first tee, and you're around people that you're going to be competing with. You're not really sure what to expect, everything like that. And just learning to get your mind right can definitely help with that. Um, Golf is not a sport where you want to show up thinking about like the end result. You can't show up to a golf tournament and think, well, if I shoot 75, maybe I'll be able to qualify for the tournament, or if I shoot this, maybe I can win. That's not going to work in golf. You have to take it one shot at a time. You can't let those thoughts of, I need to post this score to win or post this score to win. That's not going to work. You have to take it one shot at a time. You hit the fairway, then you walk up to your ball, you hit the green, and then you make your putts. You can't be thinking, well, I need to get this shot down in 3 strokes or I'm, going to be out of it. That's just not going to work. So this quote from Arnold Palmer, success in golf depends less on strength of body than upon strength of mind and character. I think that kind of summarizes golf very well, in that you can't just depend on, brute strength to um, be a successful golfer. So some homework tasks to practice mindfulness, just focus on the task at hand. Don't let your mind wander, especially in class, which I can be kind of bad at, but just focus on the environment you're in and focus on what's going on around you. Don't let thoughts such as, what am I going to have for dinner? Or I need to call and make that appointment, or I need to do this, I need to do that. That can distract you from, what you're focusing on at hand. And then also try not to focus on future performance outcomes. Like I said, with athletes, they can't be concerned with winning the whole time. If they're just focused on trying to win, that can affect how they perform their skill, and it can lead to them actually not winning. So if you think, I need to get an 84 on this exam to get an A, and I need to answer this many questions and get this many questions right to get an A, it's distracting you from actually focusing on the material you're trying to learn. And if you can transform that thought into, I am adequately prepared for this exam and I'm comfortable, I have the knowledge to succeed, then that success is most likely going to come, instead of just focusing on getting that grade. And then a mindfulness activity here is called the senses scavenger hunt. There's actually a lot of different versions of this online, but this is a pretty simplified one. It says focus on one thing you can hear, see, smell, and touch. So if you're just in your room or in an environment and you're starting to get overwhelmed, the emotions are starting to overtake you, just kind of focus back in, think about the internal, external stimuli, and then focus on one thing you can hear, see, smell, and touch. And that can kind of recenter you. And that's what mindfulness is all about, is being in tune with your environment and kind of recentering yourself.